Was Nico Iamaleava forced to settle? I think this is a slam dunk. I don't think there is any question. Now, this is if he ends up at UCLA, and you guys are pointing out with Nick Iamaleava, anything could go south, but we believe that he will be at UCLA at this point. But we can ask the question, if he goes to UCLA or less, was he forced to settle? Caleb, I don't think there's any question about that.
Yes, and as far as news goes, I am reporting, and we're doing the show on the assumption that he has transferred to UCLA based on what On3 has reported, because all the signs are out. Basically, everything has made it pretty clear at this point that he's transferred to UCLA.
Except for one report by Chris Lowe that he's not going to get anywhere near the $4 million. After what I saw last week at Tennessee, this could very well blow up. I mean, this could be, whoa, you hinted that I'd make $3 or $4 million, or maybe he gets on a cost of living calculator that I did this morning talking about Nick Iamaleava, and he says, no, this isn't a great fit. I need to go to Boise State or something or BYU, where there's not as much state income tax and not as high of a cost of living. So, Caleb, yes, I think it's UCLA at this point, but let's work under the premise that it's UCLA or less.
Yes, and he has absolutely settled. This is a worse situation for him in so many ways. All right, let's think about this, Dave. Nico Iamaleava went to a school that was number 118 in offensive production last year. He is playing for a school that not one coach on that staff has ever called an offensive play before. Mm-hmm. He's playing for a head coach who was never an offensive coordinator. He's playing for an offensive coordinator who was a co-offensive coordinator last year at Indiana but didn't call any plays in Tino Sinceri. He's playing for a school that went 5-7 last year. And as you aptly pointed out on your column that's up on Off the Hook Sports right now, he is playing for a school in terms of NIL. Forget the NIL valuations of money guaranteed to him. He's playing for a school that at best is the sixth best market value of a sports team in its own area, because we'll just go through it real quick. You mentioned it. The Dodgers, the Rams, the Chargers, the Lakers, and USC are all better values than UCLA. And I think the Clippers are too. And maybe even the Kings, the LA Kings.
I didn't go Clippers and Kings. I certainly could have, but he's at best fifth fiddle. Now, here's the other reason that he settled, and more so that he made just a huge mistake. Today's Tough Question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's Tough Question. Boom. You heard that. Now, take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, so here's what I'm hearing. His new NIL deal at UCLA will be about $500,000 less than he made at Tennessee. Now, you factor in cost of living. He is looking at taking about a 50% pay cut. And I did the numbers this morning. In order to make $4 million at in Knoxville, or able to make $4 million as far as cost of living in Knoxville, I'm sorry. In order to make the same thing he made, he would have to make close to $4 million at UCLA. That's not going to happen. So he's going to make $500,000 less. The cost of living is going to cut it about another 50%. And here's the other issue that if I'm UCLA's coaches, I'm factoring in. He is not going to be a good NIL deal guy. And I haven't discussed this a lot, but I'm going to throw it out there now. I talked to several people who were in the NIL space, and they were legitimate NIL people. It wasn't just funneling Nico NIL money. Let's be real clear. Nico did not benefit from NIL. He benefited, well, on a national level to some extent, but he benefited mostly from just boosters giving him money. I talked to a lot of people who were in the NIL world, and I said, well, what would I have to pay Nico? This is before he had established himself at Tennessee, which arguably never did, but before he was a starter. And it was like ridiculous. It wasn't going to happen. He didn't show up for NIL events. So he's not going to go to UCLA or Los Angeles and start doing all these public events, opening up a local grocery store, whatever the case may be, going to a car lot, the things that so many players like, even James Pierce did at times. And he is not going to increase his NIL worth. He wasn't an NIL player for Tennessee. He just took the boosters' money. He didn't go out and promote other businesses, and he's certainly not going to do that in LA, I wouldn't imagine. So, Caleb, his top end, I would argue he could have easily gotten to his $4 million by being more active in the community. He was not active in the community. He did not provide boosters and advertisers with a good return on their dollar. I have no reason to believe he's going to do that in LA. So he's essentially, if you compare it via cost of living and the fact that he's going to make about $500,000 less, assuming he does end up signing with Tennessee, he's looking at making about 1.5-ish million in there. And it's never going to rise because he's not comfortable, or his family doesn't believe he should have to go out and do community events. So that's pretty much his top end. Had he really sold himself? I mean, like Mercedes of Knoxville. I know who handles Mercedes of Knoxville, the media buyer then. When Hendon Hooker beat Alabama, their phone was ringing Monday morning. Mercedes of Knoxville had thought about it for a long time, whether or not they wanted to be in the Hendon Hooker game. And after he beat Alabama, they were in. Why? Because he went out and shook their hands and met with them. And they knew that they were getting a stand-up kid. I'm not saying Nico's not a great, genuine young man, but he's not going to go do these things. He's shy, and it's not in his nature. His dad can try to make him if he wants to, but it's just not going to be genuine. You know how it is, Caleb. You meet somebody and you can tell they don't have your best interest at heart. They're just showing up to sell you something. That's essentially what he's going to be doing in a best case scenario. I don't think Nick Iamaleava, from the people I talk to, think that his son should even have to do things like that. That he should just show up on the field and get paid throughout the season and the offseason. The other reason why I think this is such a terrible move for Nico is that they already have a quarterback. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I think Tennessee should be gung-ho and going after this young man. It's Joey Aguilera, who is from App State, and he's really good. And they're already starting to look around. So Nico is already creating an issue, not to mention, and I sound like a broken record when I say this. Nobody knows what a record is. He is coming into the spring transfer portal, and they may run a similar offense that Josh Heupel does, but to think that he's going to learn everything, learn the nuances of his receivers in a couple of months before preseason camp is crazy. I think there's a higher likelihood that he's the backup if Aguilera stays as opposed to not. I can't find, other than being closer to home, which to me is bad as well, because if you're close to home, you're closer to Nick. I just think this is a lose all around.
I am 100% with you on everything on this. And you are right. This is the underrated part. We're going to talk about quarterbacks Tennessee target in the portal soon, but given the fact that UCLA found its quarterback and that quarterback worked with them throughout all of spring practice, Dave, I don't think I'm with you. How do we know this is a guarantee he's going to start this year? I mean, he may not win the job, and at which point he has pushed back his NFL money even further, because then he's not going to get drafted after 2025. So let's point this out, because we have to talk about UCLA taking him. I'm going to talk about this from a chemistry perspective of UCLA. Deshaun Foster, I don't think much of him as a head coach. I don't think you do either, right? But whatever, you give everybody a chance. He's in his second year. He's trying to build a program. He's got a first-year offensive coordinator in Tino Sunseri, who, by the way, is, yes, the son of Sal Sunseri. And for anybody who doesn't know, Sal Sunseri ain't the brightest bulb in the box. And
my review of Sal Sunseri from a coach that worked with him is that he's not very good with people and he's not very bright. Other than that, he should do a great job for the Vols.
Yes, exactly. And if he's not very bright, it's hard for me to think his kids are very bright. Sorry, I just don't think bright people come from dumb families. I just haven't seen that before. Okay, sorry. I'm just doing basic science and genetics there. So with that in mind, We don't know if he's necessarily playing for the brightest coach, but Deshaun Foster, whatever, he's trying to build a culture. Dave, you know this. You've covered teams. You know what can really wreck a culture? Taking in a quarterback like after spring camp and making them the starter when they didn't go through spring drills with the team at all. I'm just going to throw this out here. Remember Ed Orgeron taking Brent Schaefer from Tennessee in the summer? Remember when he named him the starter before he even set foot on campus?
Yeah.
And
that was a bad play.
It destroyed team chemistry at Ole Miss. It destroyed any chance he had of any success. Josh Heupel nearly lost his team before he ever got it, because I know a couple of people. Dave knows a couple of people. I bet Jimmy knows a couple of people who all felt Hendon Hooker should have won that starting job in fall camp. And most of the team, and Dave, you can say this, most of the team, they were a little upset with Josh Heupel going with Joe Milton. And they wanted Hendon Hooker. They felt Hooker was better. And Josh Heupel didn't even give Hendon Hooker a chance to win the job fair and square. And if Joe Milton, I'll just say this, if Joe Milton doesn't get hurt in the second game of the year and Tennessee stumbles that year, I think Josh Heupel may be fired by year 2. And because I think he would have lost the team. And so Deshaun Foster, the UCLA coach, it's not just a bad move for Nico where he's settling in so many different ways. Given all the news and the stories that we're talking about with Nico, the UCLA team knows about that, by the way. You don't think that if Deshaun Foster just out and out names him the starting quarterback, that many of the UCLA players are going to revolt against the team for that?
Quite possibly. And you can't pay a guy. Let's say they give him $1.25 million or $1.5 million. You can't pay a guy that and not play him. It's just like the NFL. When you pay a quarterback, a bajillion dollars because you just drafted him, you have to play him over a guy that may be close to him that's making $550,000 a year. College football has gone in the same direction.
To quote, whatever you think about him in politics, before he was ever in politics, Donald Trump had a quote. You know what it was, Dave? It's actually a pretty good one. He said that if I give you $1,000 loan and you can't pay me back, you've got a problem. But if I give you $100 million loan and you can't pay me back, we both got a problem. And I mean, yeah, that's kind of the situation you're in with Nico. If you give somebody $100,000 in NIL and they don't pan out, that's on them. But if you give somebody $2 million in NIL and they're not panning out, you're in trouble. And that is the situation that you're in with Nico. You got to give him this money. Best example, remember how much Washington leveraged to get RG3? They gave up everything. They had to make him work, and he didn't work out. And it set them back so long. So when you go all in like that on a player, you are screwed if they don't work out. And so, I mean, look, UCLA they're taking a big gamble with team chemistry, because I'll just say this. Someone brings this up. They had their pass protection was outside of the top 100 last year based on PFF grades. Do you think I don't see how Nico can win over his teammates on this. And Dave, you know this better than I do. If you don't win over your offensive line, they may not block that hard for you, right? They're not as inclined to protect you.
Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Did Tennessee settle? Okay, I think we pretty much settled on that.
I mean, did Nico settle?
What did I say?
You said did Tennessee settle?
Oh, did Nico settle? Sorry, did Nico settle? I think we both agree on that. So I'm going to take it a step further. Nico and his family, and it's a poll question I want you to take a part of. Nico and his family ruined his career, just too greedy. Will still be fine, just too talented. So I'll shift a bit. Brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. All right, give me an update on the poll question, Caleb, and then I want your thoughts. If you're new to the show, we've had an explosion on our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate that. Click that thumbs up button and make sure you have subscribed. All right, Caleb. So tell me, sir, the results of the question and then your thoughts.
So the poll question, Nico and his family ruined his career too greedy, will still be fine too talented. 88% say ruined his career too greedy, and 12% say will still be fine too talented. Yeah, so
Where do you stand?
I'm still on the will still be fine too talented. Only because they look, you know this, particularly at the NFL level, how arrogant. You talked about it yesterday. NFL coaches are the most arrogant people in the world. And they see his talent and they think, you know what? We're going to make him work out. So
yeah, and I think the one talent that he has is not arm strength. It's not running. It's none of that. I think he has that innate accuracy to put the ball not just through a tire, as Dan Marino used to do in that commercial. I think he's got the ability to put it through a pinhole. And I think that accuracy, not just referencing a Cowboy, but Troy Aikman used to say that accuracy is the most important attribute you can have. I think some of that's innate. I think it's like shooting. I'm decent at basketball, or at least I was when I was younger. I was decent at basketball, but I can't shoot. And I've worked on it, and there's something innate. You can only get so much better. I think that he just innately has that touch. So I do think he'll have a good career. Something we're going to talk about tomorrow. Should he just skip UCLA and prepare for the NFL? I think you could make that argument.